Teachers, what's the most disturbing thing you've confiscated off a student? When I was in high school, one of the percussionists in the lowest level band class was suspended for a couple days after a dead squirrel was confiscated from his book bag. He evidently was planning on putting it in the band teacher's desk. My band teacher thought it was funny, but was otherwise generally unfazed by the news. Adjudicated youth. First day, dropped a bag of pot out of his pants. This was 20 years ago. It was his last chance after a string of several incidents, none of which included drugs. I never turned him in. He graduated the program. He's married with children and has a great job. Not my story, but my psychology teacher used to work with underprivileged kids. One student, maybe 6 to 8 years old, really enjoyed his class and gave him a jar as a gift. What's in the jar? Jelly? Jam? No. The teacher noticed, cuts all over the boy's arms, and slowly puts the jar down. It was full of old/new blood. Completely filled. He figures that the kid saw it as a part of him, and probably saw it as something very symbolic and meaningful. He says he was told when he started to never look up the kids he worked with, because very few times is it a happy ending. The teacher's a great person. I imagine he just got a counselor and had an ambulance check the kid out and dispose of the jar. The kid's mother was also a drug addict. A hand-drawn tentacle porn hentai comic. Not me personally, but at my school. We had a 6th grader get busted smoking pot in the bathrooms, so he was suspended. On the day he came back, he had to report to the office, and they told him they were going to check his bag. He immediately, anything you find doesn't belong to me. They found something like a pound of weed in his backpack. Turns out dad was one of the local drug dealers and was trying to get his son to find him some new customers among the other 6th graders. Last I heard, the dad had been arrested and the kid was being placed into foster care. Hopefully he ended up with someone who would raise him better. Edit. Couple people have commented about the amount. I didn't see it myself, just going off what the security guy eyeballed it as. It was also described as a stupidly large amount. I'm so proud of the disturbing things I confiscated from my students. Worked at a schoolio where the kids historically had bad reps, but dang were they adorable. Practice blunts of paper and tacky crumbs. Practice lines of tacky dust. Dice made of paper being used to play craps with our positive behavior. Dallas, guess what city we're in? My absolute favorite. Student and I were working together at our intervention table. We are both autistic, have PTSD, ADHD. We get in trouble a lot. Somehow a teacher-student duo constantly towing the line with admins. Student was having some issues with inappropriate sexual behavior at the time, so when their book bag started vibrating, I was fucking mortified and terrified. Our eyes met. They knew I knew. Silence. Then they pulled out a vibrating toothbrush. Best prank ever. A razor blade. Apparently cutting is a thing middle school girls do a lot. Once there was a girl in my class who was writing into her diary during lesson, so the teacher took it off her. Turns out it was a hit list of all the people she wanted dead, along with a motive for each person. I was on it too for some reason. She also wrote down contacts for hitmen who she wanted to hire to kill us. I'm pretty sure she got mental health help afterwards. Colleague confiscated a Porsche from an underage unlicensed kid. Called parents who told the kid in language of origin to ignore colleague and just drive it home anyway. Illegally. Parent gave no fucks. Eventually they had to come down and collect the car because there was no way colleague was handing the keys back to the kid. There's a reason I call them elves. This story pretty much captures it beautifully. Entitled Little Fuckers. My best friend in junior high decorated the inside of his locker with a ton of pentagrams, and when a teacher saw it she freaked out and pulled him into the office, got the principal, and called his parents. My best friend was also kind of a chicken. We loved watching scary movies and reading horror novels and that kind of thing, but it was not without some consequences, like being awake for days and terrified of our own shadows for a while. As everyone was grilling him, his mom says he just clammed up and refused to say a word. Eventually that made the grown-ups more angry, and they demanded that he explain himself. Was he trying to summon demons or worshipping the devil? They eventually broke him, and he spilled it. He wanted to give the impression that he was edgy and cool and into dark magic, but he was too afraid that it would work on accident. So instead of using pentagrams, he used a bunch of the Star of David. Sure enough, the principal marched them all to his locker, the teacher calling him a liar the whole way. When they arrive and open the locker wide, they find not a shrine to the Dark Prince, but of the iconic Jewish symbology. Everyone was too hysterical to really keep a stern tone, and he was let off the hook. I think they still made him take it down though. A dead bird he'd found outside and decided to keep in his pocket. It was only disturbing because I then also had to touch a dead bird from outside. I teach 4th grade. My 3rd year teaching, I had this girl in my class from Saudi Arabia. The first few months in my class, she was very quiet and reserved, but as the year went on, she opened up and quickly became one of my favorite students. She was funny and sarcastic, and she started playing with us at recess. I always play football with my students, and she was great at juking kids out. She was great at making a quick cut and getting away from everybody and just burning them with her speed. So, one day we are out playing, and there is a 3rd grade class out at recess. This one kid asks if he can play, and I tell him sure. My Saudi Arabian girl jukes him out once and scores, and it gets this 3rd grader pissed off. I tell him to cool it and that we are just playing for fun. Her team gets the ball again eventually, and I throw it to her. She jukes the kid and scores again. He runs up to her, and then she runs over to me, and she looks horrified. She tells me that the little boy just pulled a knife on her and told her that if she juked him out again, that he was going to stab her in the throat. I'm a male, but if anyone messes with my students, I go full on mama bear mode. So, I immediately yell hey, and start marching over to this 3rd grader. He takes off running over to the table where his jacket is and picks it up. His teacher is staring at me confused, and I start interrogating him. He tells me that he didn't tell her that she's lying, and that he doesn't have anything. He empties his pockets for us and says he doesn't have anything. I notice he's holding his jacket pretty tight, so we tell him to give it us. He starts bawling and hands his jacket to us. He had torn a hole in the interior lining and had hidden a pair of nail clippers. We showed them to my student, and she said that he had pulled out the filer that had a hook on the end, and that is what he had threatened her with. Our SRO was caught, and he got taken into custody and was expelled from school. Blew my mind that this 3rd grader was going to try to shank my student because she was faster than him. I miss that girl. She went back to Saudi Arabia at the end of the year. I think about her now and then and hope she's doing okay. A hard drive. A student was recovering data on hardcore hard drive Japanese porn. It was hard to look at. I didn't get hard. Not sure this counts. My old therapist was the psychotherapy director of an adolescent inpatient mental facility. New patients' suitcases were searched for drugs, sharp objects, other life-threatening items, and then the patient was placed in the high security section for observation for 3 days. Upon examining the contents of his suitcase, they found a human arm. The police never did figure out where he got it from. I teach ESL in Korea for elementary and middle schoolers at an Anin cram school. First class of the day, I have Gunho, this 2nd grader that just struggles with everything from learning to proper school behavior. None of the other kids like him. We go at it a little bit sometimes, usually because he tries to feed answers to other kids, but he's batting a literal .000 average. If anyone in that class is getting a timeout, it's him. During the Parkland school shooting aftermath, Gunho comes in suspiciously with something behind his back, and I ask him what he has. Little dude whips out a switchblade and stabs me in the leg before I can react. Not a real knife. Springer-aided, retractable, dull. He's laughing his ass off that he got me good, while the rest of the class is playing mobile games on their cracked iPhone X's. But goddamn, I came to Korea to escape that kind of stress. My boss had a talk with his mom. This happened to my friend's father, who was once a school teacher at a village somewhere near Patna, India. So he decided to check the school bags of some students. While checking the bag of a 6th grade student who was infamous for being notorious, 6 Indian country-made pistols were found. He just looked the kid in the eye, close to his bag and never ever checked actual bags again. Needless to say, he left that place as AON as he could.